David Smith here with another Flipped Classroom math video. Today's topic, the factoring flowchart. If you've done some factoring, chances are you've learned a bunch of different factoring patterns. Now, on a test or a quiz, they might start throwing problems at you and you have to figure out what type of problem it is. Is it a difference of squares, perfect squares, greatest common factor, etc. And sometimes that's the hardest part. You might have the processes mastered, but deciding which one to use will either lead you to the correct answer or not. And remember, whenever you see a problem that you think is not factorable, think again. Chances are it probably is. I know students lose points on my tests and quizzes because they just give up and write not factorable. So the factoring flowchart will help you decide whether it really isn't factorable or lead you to the way to do that. I'm going to show you this on my screen, so let's get started. Okay, now we're looking at the factoring flowchart. You start on the left, right here, where it says start here, and what you want to do is the first thing you do is remove common factors. So look at all the terms in your quadratic expression and pull out any common factors. This will often make your job considerably easier and take that quadratic expression and turn it into something that's recognizable to you. Okay, so once you've done that, or if there's no common factors, move on to the second column where we go through all the different pattern names. So the first thing you want to do is look for a difference of squares. That's when you have one thing squared minus another thing squared. Sometimes it's a little tricky, but just look real hard and do some thinking and decide whether or not you have a difference of squares. If you do, it will factor down using this pattern. If not, scoot down the list to the next item, which is perfect squares. So take a look. Does your quadratic expression match this pattern? It's a little harder to see these, but with practice, I'm sure you can do it. If it does, then your factoring is going to fall into one of these two, either a plus b squared or a minus b squared. And of course, you'll need to translate the a's and b's on this sheet into the numbers that you've got in your quadratic expression. Finally, if you don't have perfect squares, go on down and take a look. If you have 4 terms, then you might have one of these things that's called grouping in pairs. And here we take a GCF out of each pair and then further factor that down so you end up with something that looks like this. Okay? If you don't have 4 terms, then you can move on down and look and see if you have a sum product type. This is also, I call this the reverse FOIL type. So in this case, you're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to the last term and add to the middle term. If you see that you have that pattern, then you can go ahead and use it to factor that expression. Finally, if you don't have a sum product type, scoot down to the last one, which is splitting the middle term. Now this factoring pattern requires that you have a number in front of your squared term, in this case x squared. So in this example, I have a 2x squared. Now, if I had that number out in front there, I first tried to factor a GCF out of it in this first step. So if I couldn't and I had that number left, then often I can just skip right down to this middle term because I know I'm going to need it. If that's the case, then I can use this pattern following this example to do that factoring. So there you have it. I hope that video helped you use your factoring flowchart and that you do better on your next quiz or test. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you for watching.